Hello, everybody. Welcome to We'd Rather Be Reading. I'm Jerrica.
And I'm Lia.
So, how was your week? What have we been reading? Actually, we both went in some sort of like hibernation reading mode where we were like, don't talk to us. We're a little bit in our zone right now.
Well, I mean, it was the end of school, so my kids were home, and then they were having activities with friends, but then we only had one kid at home this weekend, and she was like, we're going to do this puzzle. She got like this 1,000-piece puzzle, but she has no patience for puzzles, like none whatsoever. And I love puzzles. So, you know, I just plugged in my AirPods, and I puzzled like all of Saturday until like 11 o'clock at night. My husband's like, I'm going to bed. I'm like, oh yeah, me too. Yeah. I'm coming now. But I read a lot this week, so I've actually made it through like 5 books, I think.
Amazing. That's going to be some sort of record. I don't think I have made it through 5 books in 1 week.
Yeah, but it was like a book. They were not very long.
Okay.
Actually.
Oh, nice. How refreshing.
So I read this book that's been on my list for a while, These Violent Delights by Chloe Gang.
Okay, yeah.
And I hated it. I'm sorry to say.
No.
I really, really hated it.
No way.
Yeah.
I have it on my list too. I think I've heard a lot about it.
Yeah. It's like a Romeo and Juliet kind of story, and it takes place in the 1920s, 1930s, something like that, in Shanghai.
Okay.
And it's basically 2 warring gangs of Chinese versus Russians. And she's still Juliet, but he's Roma. But he's Montego, and she's Zai, Juliet Zai instead of Capulet. And I mean, they try to bring in all the characters, but it's not the same story. And I think that's what really got me, because I was waiting for, you know, this meeting and then falling in love and, you know, this star-crossed lovers kind of thing. But instead it's like they did that. They met and they fell in love, but it was 4 years earlier. And now they hate each other and they're back, and then they have to work together, and they're kind of still secretly love each other. I mean, it's there, but it was... I found I didn't really get behind the romance. I didn't understand why they love each other. Okay. I could not get behind the story very much. It's a monster. People are dying, ripping their own throats out, and they have to like work together to figure out and to stop this monster. I didn't like it. Took me forever. I kept falling asleep.
That's actually strange.
Reading, and I kept falling asleep. So it took me forever to get through it. And it was like, ugh, I need to read another. It was like that. And I'm usually not like that with books. Saying that, though, I will probably read book 2 when it comes out. Mostly to find out what the frick's happening, because it ends a bit on a cliffhanger. But it's not out until the fall, I think. But then I read The Road.
Okay.
You know The Road, right? Like, it's been a movie and stuff. It's by Cormac McCarthy. It's
oh my god, this is one of my favorite movies ever. Is this the one where he is like a nomad kind of living in a bus?
No.
Okay.
That's Into the Wild.
Into the Wild.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
The Road is a post-apocalyptic, like the world's on fire and there's hardly any people alive. And it's about this man walking with this little boy, and they're trying to make it from the cold to the coast, to warmer climate. And people are like cannibals, and this is basically awful the whole way through. Oh. Like, there's people trying to eat them, there's people robbing them, they're broken, they're hurt, they have no food, they have no water, and all through this book is just misery. But it's like, it's won so many prizes, and it was on my list of like, I should be reading this.
Okay.
So I did. It was about a 6-hour audiobook, and...
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. But it's very depressing. I mean, it is...
Oh.
It is like...
It's a downer.
People trying to eat them being chased.
Oh,
like,
no.
Yeah, and it's very... Yeah, it's a bit of a hard one. So then I needed something light. So...
What'd you switch to?
Autobiography. And this is something that I've also had
say it
on my
again.
list.
Is it autobiography?
Yeah, autobiography.
Yes.
By Christina Lauren. And this is for Pride Month too. This is a very gay book. It's about he's bisexual, I guess, the main character. But he gets there's like this special class that they have 1 year where they get to write a book during class. Okay. And it's like a special program. So not everyone gets to go. You have to apply to get in, and you have to actually like have potential to actually be writing a book. And then it's like and he falls in love with his TA. But it's also, they're in like outside of Salt Lake City, they're in Mormon country, so like all of these people are Latter-day Saints, like seriously like strictly religious, very very religious. So it's got a lot to do with religion and how religion sees people, and especially homosexuals and gay and bisexual and how you deal with this and you know, he's Jewish, he's half Jewish, the main character, and they live there, and his mom escaped from basically a very Mormon family at one point earlier, broke ties because his aunt is gay. So it's like a lot to do with religion and so on and so forth. It was very good, actually.
Yay!
I really enjoyed it. And then I went on to read Nobody Knows But You. It was on when we chose The Good Girls, this was the 2 books we chose in between. It was that one and this one, and it's by Annika Mrose Rizzi. And it's a summer camp book where someone dies, where someone is dead at the end. And it's all told through letters, and the main girl, she writes letters to her best friend who's accused, well, without spoiling, I'm going to spoil a lot. I'm sorry for all the spoilers here because it's very hard to not spoil this book, because it's gradually, like, she writes these letters to her best friend that she made at camp. And in the beginning, it makes it seem like her best friend is dead, because she keeps saying, like, we would be best friends forever until death did us part, and I can never speak to you again, and I mourn you, and blah, blah, blah. But then it turns out the best friend is actually the one who's accused of murdering the boy that she was hooking up with in the summer. And then as the book progresses, it turns out that she didn't do it. It was actually our main girl here who is the murderer, and she's basically a proper psychopath. And it's all unreliable narrator, cannot trust anything. And it gradually comes out, the story, so it's kind of nice. And then I went to Daughter of the Pirate King, which I love, because I love myself some Tricia Levenseller.
Right? She's so good.
Oh my god, I love her books.
Daughter of the Pirate King is good. And then now you're on the second one, which I've already finished. Daughter of the Siren Queen. And just awesome. Pirates and sirens. Like, there's nothing that goes better together.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Great.
And I love it. It's so good. I love Tricia Levenseller. I love her books because all of her main characters are unapologetic, fully fierce. They are badass. And they just take, you know...
They take no shit.
Life. And they just go for it. And they're capable and able, and they believe in themselves, and it's just so refreshing.
Such amazing main female characters in her books. We really like them.
So what did you...
Do you remember I told you last time that I found a book in my library bookshelf that I was like, where did this come from? And turns out it was something that my mom had brought on an airplane that she read like in a couple hours flying here from Canada. And I had never read it. So I'm like, okay, I pick it up. I start to read it. It's a romance book. And you know what? They constantly, like in all the reviews, compare it. It's called Bared to You by Sylvia Day. They compare it to 50 Shades of Grey. And I have to say, like, weird. It has nothing to do with 50 Shades. It doesn't have that BDSM stuff either. So it has like some submission, but only for him saying to her, they're both so damaged from the childhood sexual abuse that they both had, of course, separately. And they're dealing with that together. So sometimes there's like more aggressive sex and sometimes she cries and things like that. But it's really like has no parallels to 50 Shades, maybe other than he's a super rich guy. But so is she. So anyways, I don't like that they compare the books to 50 Shades. What else I don't like is there's 5 freaking books. That does not need to be. It could have been very happily summed up in 2. They just kept going through the same problems and things like that.
It was another after series situation. Exactly. Rehashing the same problem too many hours.
And then what I also saw was that, of course, I got to read all of these books in a row. But the books came out 1 per year. So people had to wait literally 5 years to get the end of the story. And it was so anticlimactic. And you're like, okay. Like, but we knew that this is what was going to happen in the end anyways. And it was it was not as toxic of a relationship as after. And that was very childish, that relationship. Yeah. This was like proper grown adults. Anyway, so I finished reading that series. And I'm happy I finished it. But I really think that it didn't need to be that long. But she made money from it, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then I was in a downer mood because I hurt my leg doing yoga. All those that happen in yoga class. And I was like, looking at all these lists, what is the best, like, hot romance book? So this book came up on this list, and it was like, there's no magic or any paranormal stuff that I usually am into. And, you know, I can read some crazy-ass books. But this is not a crazy book in that sense. This is like a really intense relationship. There's not back history of abuse the way there was in the other book to really explain why. Other than, of course, the main character, he's the president of the United States, and he's been in the army, and he's gone through battles and war, and so I'm sure there's PTSD lingering there. And he falls in love with this girl, but it is like he meets her when she's 17 and he's like 30. And then he's like, I'm not going to like go there, like I'm a war hero kind of thing, and you're too young. But she's like obsessed with him and sends him emails and things like that. And then he doesn't respond. He's like, I'm not going to touch it. But he has like this forever like love attraction to her. Anyways, life goes on. 10 or 12 years later, he's the president of the United States, and he like summons her. And they have a relationship together. And so many parts of reading this book, I've read a lot of books with a lot of crazy sex in it. But some of the parts of this book, I was like, like crawling out of my own skin, like uncomfortable and, what's the word? Like shy, like, oh, is that something that people do? Like, is that really like how she's thinking in her head? Like, it's so far away from how I am as a human being. So I think that it was crazy to read, and it was really well written and everything like that. It's called American Queen.
I did go and look this up in Goodreads after you sent it to me, and the second review in Goodreads is ladies strap on your vibrators.
I know.
I was like, okay, it's that kind of book. Got it.
But also, okay, yes, there's sex in it, but it's a submission book. So he makes her like crawl around and things like that. There's not.
And that one should have been compared to 50 Shades of Grey.
Exactly.
This is the comparison.
This is the comparison book. But it's intense. So if you're looking for an intense romance, American Queen by Sierra Simone was intense.
All right. And we also did read our book of the week, which was A Song of Wraiths and Ruin by Roseanne A. Brown. And last week we predicted something. It was hard because nothing had really happened by the time.
Do you know what? I wish that they took the sister, so that we would be able to predict it a little bit better. But we were ahead of the game there. So throughout the book.
So basically, in this book, let's just. Do you have a super summary of it, or should I give it a crack? We know my summaries are not very super.
There's a super summary that I actually read here on Goodreads. I'll say who the reviewer is also. And she says, the princess named Karina, who is trying to resurrect her mother, and Malik, who has to kill the princess to get his sister back from this evil spirit guy. I thought that the plot was really well done. That's the plot.
That's the plot. So what happens is Karina is, she's the younger daughter, actually, of the Sultana, who's known as the Kestrel because she's so fierce and mighty, I believe. Her older sister died in a fire a few years back. And this...
And dad is also dead.
And the dad died in the same fire. And this is something that comes out, so spoiler alert as usual here, because it comes out that it was actually due to Karina having magic and accidentally setting this fire by using her wind magic to create a thunderstorm. Wasn't sure how that worked.
Yeah.
But this is what happened regardless. And she has suppressed this memory. She doesn't remember it. And she has also suppressed her magic down so deep that it gives her migraines all of the times. So she's kind of sensitive in a way. Like, she's got all these migraines. She hasn't, even though her sister's dead and she's technically now supposed to be the next Sultana, she hasn't trained or practiced for this job at all. No. So she seemed to me, and I'm going to be upfront here right away, I did not enjoy this book very much. And most of it because of the main characters. I just did not like them. You know,
in a lot of reviews, it says either you love this book or hate this book. And I think that we're both on I'm sort of impartial because I didn't connect to it in any way. Yeah. The descriptiveness wasn't there for me. And I like flowery stuff, and there was no flowers.
No flowers. I think it was, for me, it was really the main characters.
Yeah.
I wrote this. I don't like the main characters. It's literally in my notes. Like, I find Karina to be very annoying. She's entitled while at the same time very hard on herself. She refuses help.
Yeah.
At all points where people try to help her, she keeps shutting them down. But then she's very like,
I'm a badass.
I know.
And it's
like she spent no time learning to be a sultana or how to lead, and then she sneaks around and makes half-baked plans to resurrect her mother, disguising herself and putting herself continuously at risk without there being any real benefit to it for anyone. Like all of these times where she's out sneaking and stuff, like there's no point to it. Like Malik, he's tortured. He's trying to get his sister back. I liked him better, but not really. He suffers from panic attacks. It's
definitely a PTSD line there as well.
Yeah.
But the anxiety attacks and panic attacks, and it's made to make him look weak.
Yeah.
So that she looks stronger.
But he uses a power to control a god later on, which I didn't quite get that part either. But Malik, he's like, when we started reading, I literally thought he was like 11 years old because he's described as being so young, but he is got to be like 17 or 18 or something like that. Like he is much older than he was supposed to be. Then he's described in the beginning, but he's very much described like this little boy. And then he comes into his magic, and it turns out that there's two different kinds of magic. This was also part of it. It took me a while to figure out. There's two kinds of magic. One of them is related to the day you were born, and then the deity that rules the day you were born, so which is your patron deity then, I guess.
And they're elemental deities.
Yes, and he's life aligned, which elementals is fire, wind, water, earth, life, and
fire?
Solar.
Yeah. Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
But I'm not entirely sure. And I believe he was life aligned, but I kept meaning to listen out for it and missing it every time. And his magic then is different. It's the one of the mind. So he can create visions, and he can control people's minds, basically. And this comes across like this is a different kind of magic. And this kind of magic, there's a lot of world building in this. When the land of Zeron is created, there's a meteor that goes across. This is what they're celebrating with this solstitia. And a barrier was erected, and the king was killed. And he's the king with no face, like they scratched out his face everywhere. But then it turns out that he wasn't actually killed. He was a god. And he was just banished to this other realm that's kind of lying parallel to this world that they're in. And this is where Malik's little sister gets taken by him and his Idir.
Yeah.
And all of the people that sided with the king, he was in the pharaohs. Is that what they are? They keep talking about pharaohs, I think. They were the ones that had this magic that Malik has, the magic of the mind. And all of these people have then been hunted down because they are assumed to be along with the pharaoh, even though they have zero control over it, because they're then descendant of Idir rather than being descendant of, what was her name, the Sostasia that they were talking about. Anyways, instead of being descended by her.
Okay.
Yeah. But in reality, this is stupid because those two were actually together. So all of them are descended by both of them. So and then there's a plan also for Malik. He needs to kill her because he meets Idir. Idir takes his sister. He gives him this magic tattoo that's also a dagger. And his job is to kill Karina, the princess.
Right. And her mom dies.
And then Malik becomes the champion for his goddess, so that he can play this game, which will bring him close to the princess. This is not a bad plan, though. But then he's very useless in the first part. Like, he finds the mask because he's being helped by the hyena. But and then her plan to resurrect her mother is based on this book that she loses because Malik runs her carriage off the bridge. But she still remembers it perfectly what to do, which is strange. And part of it is she needs the King of a Heart. And I kept thinking, like, when they find his grave, Idir's grave, underneath where she can only get in with her ring and the words.
Yeah.
And it's like all of these people that were like set up and had to spend forever with the pharaoh in his grave. I was sure that they were going to take his heart because it was the heart of the king.
Oh.
Which I think would make for a better story, in all honesty, because I had so much issues.
That's smart.
I had so much issues with the whole... She is now the sultana, so if she marries the champion of this competition, he will then be king. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Rules of succession, no. No. He will be a prince.
Yeah.
A prince consort, because you don't... If you have a female leader, you don't have a king.
King, no.
Because king outranks queen.
Yeah.
So just here was a flaw. I don't like this. I was annoyed. They have consorts, and he will be a prince consort. He was not actually be a king. This, they just power ahead with this, and even Idir just takes the heart of the boy Tunde who ends up winning this challenge because she makes him win because Malik cheats. But it's all warped in a way. Like I'm not.
I got lost so many times, had to like rethink, should I just rewind? Should I just like listen to this book all over again?
I had to do that too a few times. And then we're led to believe throughout this book that the council is the evil one. Like there's a traitor, she's being told this early on, Karina, that there's a traitor in her castle somewhere. And they keep portraying like the leader of the council as like evil and undermining her. And at one point the council have the power to contradict her because she hasn't been through her coronation yet. But I'm like, even uncoronated, she would still outrank her council, surely. Like, there's no way they would be like, oh, don't listen to the sultana.
She hasn't had her celebration yet.
She hasn't had her celebration yet. You need to listen to us. And then it turns out that Farid is the traitor. And I pegged him early on. I wrote it. Farid is a traitor. I'm sure of it. It's him all along. I predict this. Because it was too much layering of him always being so good to the family and him being like a brother. It was like spreading it a bit too thick. I was like, he's the traitor. And the same with the leader of the council. It was too evil. It was too easy to be like, oh, that one. I was like, no, it's probably, having to deal with spoiled little freaking sultans and just being all sultanas and just being like... Pfft.
What's great is that this is a debut novel, so there are so many like things that this author will get in feedback from reviews and pods and whatever else that she may listen to, and I think that the next book, because there's going to be another one, will have a like stronger plot, like more depth, stronger description, because those were the things that were lacking in this book. I could tell that what she was more focused on was like to develop the main characters, which we both thought were not super awesome anyways, but she tried to create layers with their anxieties and with their migraines and things that they were not like superhuman kind of thing, like a realness to each of them.
And they were real as people, honestly. I did not get their romance. I did not understand why they were liking each other. This I did not get because they spent like hardly any time together.
She didn't even know what his name was for like a long time.
No, and it was more like physical attraction rather than anything else. Which, honestly, if they're 17...
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Who cares what's in their head when they're 17?
The hormones are sparking.
Looking good, I like this. But I did not get the romance angle of this. And at the end of the book, they're not together. Because she's escaping. And it turned out also in the book that she could never leave her city. Because of this deal that was made where a child was put into the comet. Yeah, I was struggling to follow along a little bit there.
What do you think it's going to be like as a TV show?
And Idir is now stuck in Malik's head.
Right.
So this one, I think, for a TV show could be really funny with Idir in Malik's head. Yeah. And him just trying to break loose all the time. This could be like comic relief. I could see that. But... I think it could make for a good TV show, though, because I think you would add a few more writers to this. You would shape up the plot. You could show rather than having to tell and with words, which I think could work to the benefits. I would be intrigued by this, honestly. speaking of TV shows.
Tell me.
Oh my god, we found a gem this week.
What is it?
It's this BBC show called Lady Parts. And I love it.
No.
Love it.
Oh my god, I gotta see it.
It's about these 5 Muslim girls in a punk band in the UK.
That sounds right up your alley.
All the songs are great. I ran to one of the songs. I ran to Bashir with a good beard. It was just fantastic. I love this show. Like, so good.
Awesome.
So good. So if you want to have a quick little... It didn't take long. There's quite short episodes. And there was like 6 or 8 episodes. I think 6 only. Really good. Really, really good.
Yay.
Yeah. Lady Parts. It's a BBC show. It was so good.
So we can move on now to our next book of the week, which I'm pretty excited about. And you know what I'm also excited about? That I'm reading it, because I have been listening a lot, especially the last 2 books that we listened to because of the narrators. Mm-hmm. But now we get to read. Are you reading also, or are you listening?
I'm reading also. Mm-hmm. So let's start by judging this book by its cover.
The book is called The Invisible Life of Addie, LaRue by V.E Schwab.
Yes. And there's 2 covers. There's this one, which is just a text with the constellations, which is something that's predominant because she has 7 freckles. But we don't know that yet. Sorry, we're judging this by its cover.
Yes, by
the constellations. And then it's the other one, which has flowers and little strings, kind of thing.
Right, and
which I think also has the 7 dots.
There's got to be
3, 4,
7.
5, 6, 7. Yeah.
There's definitely something having to do with.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, these covers don't give us much.
No.
I would not be able to...
But maybe a little mystery.
This one I'd be like, frick, this is gardening. I wouldn't pick this up.
I mean, because of the way that the text is, it makes me think like that it's going to be like a mystery, like some sort of Sherlock Holmesy.
Yeah, and I misread this a few times when I look at it. Like, it takes me a while to get invisible, because I keep reading invincible, or you know... my brain keeps substituting invisible for other words. So it's like... But it's The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. We're basically just going to say that we have no idea what this book is about based on this cover.
No.
We might pick it up anyways
really
because we like the title.
No.
And we did read the first 3 chapters.
Yes.
So it starts off with the girl running from a wedding. Is it her wedding? I think so. The girl is Adeline. We're in France. The early 1700s. Yes. The next chapter, we jump to New York in 2014, and a girl wakes up next to a boy, Toby, his name, who won't remember her. This has happened before. She uses different names every time, and she hopes something will be different this time. She cannot use her real name, which is Adeline or Addie. She can't say it or write it. Yeah. And then it's her birthday, and she wants a gift. So she goes to a store and she just takes an outfit and she goes into she asks the store clerk, can I try this on? And the store clerk's like, sure. And then when she comes out, the store clerk's like,
where'd you come from?
Where did you come from? Who are you? And she's like, oh, nothing fit. And then she just leaves, just taking this outfit with her, leaving all of her old clothes just in apart from her old, well-worn leather jacket that is from him.
Right.
Who was in New Orleans. We don't know who him is. Yeah. And in chapter 3, Adeline is a little girl in the year 1698 in France.
Yes.
And she goes with her father to the market, and she gets to sleep at an inn for the first time. This is pretty much what happened. She is accompanied by darkness. In New York, she's accompanied by darkness, and it takes the shape of a beautiful boy with dark hair and green eyes. And he's always there. And she shaped him into a person. Before that, he was just darkness. This is what happens in the first 3 chapters.
So, what the heck is happening?
I love it.
Happening?
I don't know, but I love this. I love it so much.
I
was like, I think I wrote you after like chapter 1. I'm like, I love this.
I know.
I'm already in love with this. I love this.
You know
so
what?
much.
I was talking to my husband, Johan, about it, and I was like, oh, this is going to be an awesome book. And he's like, tell me why. I'm like, what? Are you interested in hearing about a book that I'm reading? And he's like, yeah, but this one is not like a weird one, right? And I was like, well, actually, I think it might be one of the weirdest. But then I drew a parallel to this TV show that we watched that only had 1 season, maybe 5 to 8 years ago. And it was where the main character was a man and he owned an antique shop, and he's like living forever and ever, but he dies, but then he keeps getting reborn in the Hudson River. Oh. And then he's like, comes back, but he always comes back at the same age. So no one remembers him. No one knows really who he is. He has like this one connection, and it has something to do with a relative that is like connected to him, and that's the only reason why that guy remembers who he is. But so I was like, hey, it's kind of like that TV show, and he really liked that show and thought like all of the drawing the history back into like real life and how you adapt when you are so old and have been through so many years. So I can't wait to continue reading this book.
Honestly, my family were interested too. And I was
what is happening?
I was like, this is the premise. And they're like, wow, that sounds cool. I'm like,
I know.
So exciting. So, prediction time. Yeah. Do you want to go first?
I mean, how can you predict something where nobody remembers her? And she lives forever and ever. I was thinking to myself, like, okay, this is not a romance book. This is probably not, like, connected to magic. But she references the freckles on her face, and now we see the covers of the book. And astrology was also mentioned in the beginning of the book as well. Mm-hmm. I don't really know what's going to happen, but I think that maybe we're going to get to the last freckle.
Maybe. Or maybe it will be like when the stars line up like her freckles, she will be free. I don't know.
Yeah.
So Addie has made a deal with the devil, I'm guessing.
Ooh.
Well, I mean, with the darkness, with the devil, something. She's made a deal. I mean, you don't live forever unless you make a deal with someone. And she will live forever. She will be 23 forever. Yay! Awesome freaking age. I'm like, she's not 17?
I know.
Really?
23,
this is exciting.
Age. 23, 24.
Yeah. 23
money.
But no one will remember her.
No.
Yeah. She has 7 freckles, this is in here. She can't tell anyone her name or her story, but I'm guessing she's going to meet someone who will remember her, and things will start to change. Mm-hmm. Maybe her deal with the devil will be done, and she will live again, no longer afraid of all the things that life holds, because that was her thing. Like, she was afraid of being tied down. She was afraid of all of these things, right? Mm. She was afraid of growing up and being stuck, or of having a family. And that's why she made this deal. But having been invisible for a few hundred years, maybe she's finally ready to live. That's my prediction.
Oh, but that's a sweet story.
Because I kind of feel like she ran from this marriage. She ran from, like, she didn't want to be tied down. But it's now been 300 years, so...
You ready now?
Maybe, she's like, no one can remember you. It would be kind of nice if I was remembered a little bit, have some people that were mine, So this is my prediction. I think she's ready to finally live.
Oh, I can't wait to read it. What do you say? Should we go and read?
We should go and read. I can't wait. Honestly, so excited about this.
Listen and follow along with us. This is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. We will see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
We'd Rather Be Reading is an original podcast by Jerrica and Lia Sandfö. The music for The Penguins, written and performed by David Allred from the album The Transition, courtesy of Erased Tapes. Please check him out on Spotify and check us out on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram at We'd Rather Be Reading and on Twitter at We'd Rather Read. You can also email us at we'dratherbereadingthepod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.